Hello, everybody. Welcome back to some more Overwatch League pick'ems. We are into the second week of the summer showdown, right? Yeah, summer showdown. We're a little late on this. This video will probably be outdated. As you can see, we're recording this at like almost 1 a.m. on Friday morning. So East Region's about to start up, but that's not going to stop us from talking about the rest of the week. Last week, though, was pretty eventful, to say the least, not only in game, but behind the scenes. So, is there a specific one that you want to talk about first? Because there's definitely a lot to go over.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of matches that we weren't expecting. Uh, on my pick'ems, there's certainly a lot of red, which isn't normal. I would say I'm a good predictor of games,
I
so
know, same. This week was
It's
horrible.
rare for it's rare for me to see a lot of red, and I think one of the teams that made a lot of red is the Houston Outlaws, because they did two really unexpected things. The first unexpected thing they did was they lost to the New York Excelsior.
Didn't they get reverse
It was
swept by Nixville, too?
certainly, uh,
I think it was a reverse sweep.
I don't know, maybe.
But I know it was
It
a
doesn't
very
matter
close
since
game.
New York got the dub in any way. I don't know how they did, but 3-2 victory is certainly impressive against a team like the Houston Outlaws. You'd think their second win would come from like Paris, Vancouver, or some other low team, maybe in Boston, but no, it ended up being Houston Outlaws, who have a good record and are also seem to be doing pretty good right now, as shown with their second game against the Gladiators, which they actually picked up the victory. Really shocking things coming out from that match.
That was
It
another
was,
really good game. I think that this week was just a ton of really good games, regardless of who won.
yeah, I
Uh,
think Houston found an identity in that match, like
that
dealing with
Dante can
Dante
just carry the
over,
team.
yeah,
They don't need Lep. Which,
yeah,
I do want to go back real quick to what you were saying with Nixel and the lower tier teams. And when you mentioned the Boston Uprising, Boston had an absolutely 50-50 showing this week. Looked absolutely brutal in their victory over the Rain. They looked absolutely terrifying. And they really looked like they were going to be a top echelon team, especially with how high people see the Atlanta Rain. But that is also to say that their loss against the Spitfires seemed to be a bit more of a expectation for Boston. So
I
really,
think
it just comes a question of what is Boston really doing here.
I think that's more of a fact or a showing of Atlanta Reign, seeing that they also lost in the same fashion as they did to the
Yeah,
Boston Uprising,
they had a
as they
very
did to the
poor.
Toronto Defiant.
They had a very poor showing against Toronto, which is a bit of a shocker when it comes to this team because you would think Jotes seems like it's kind of built for this Atlanta squad. More specifically, Hawk, who's really kind of taken on Doomfist really well, and to me, I feel like Junker Queen kind of plays in a very similar fashion, just a lot more close knit, and that always was something that the Atlanta Reign was very strong at last season, being very close together and defensive. So I feel like that this should have been perfect for Atlanta, but it was just kind of a really disappointing performance from Atlanta. But a performance that was not that disappointing was Sunday, August 14th, the day that will go in history as the day the Vancouver Titans picked up their first win in the 2022 season, and in an absolutely dominant fashion against the Paris Eternal. Genuinely one of the best games of Overwatch. Not really. It was kind of disappointing to see just how poor the Paris Eternal played.
It was just really one-sided. I mean, it wasn't really that entertaining to watch.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
wasn't something I
this,
expected either, which kind of made it a little exciting. But at the same time, it
I,
wasn't
it
because of the
it's
fact
no
that it's.
wonder why this roster got dropped, pretty much, because it was easily the worst team. They're probably worse than the Charge. before Charge got rid of all their players.
Exactly. This is kind of this is the perfect segue into the behind the scenes stuff that happened this week. Paris made a lot of big moves this week. They got rid of Khan, Don, Dridro, and Festola in the wake of this past week. And I'm trying to pull it up real quick. Their Twitter so I can see just who they signed. Because they picked up two more supports, a tank, and another DPS. They picked up Malfel, my bad. Alpha Contenders, Crawl, or I'm sorry, I'm gonna butcher these names mainly because I'm just quickly reading them through. Rack Attack, and Luke Mind. Luke Minnow, I'm sorry, I keep butchering all these, and I know I will. Off of Contenders, and hopefully this seems like this might be a new look for the Paris Eternal going into this week. But a team that really, I think, I want to quickly keep talking about Paris for a second. What are your thoughts on these pickups from Paris?
I'm not sure how good these players are individually, but it's definitely going to take a while for them to get used to each other because they haven't really played together all that often. So I know even if they are good pieces, they still don't have any synergy, which they're going to need, and they're going to be lacking. So I think Paris throughout this next set of games is going to struggle really hard until they finally click together, and maybe they'll do something. But I don't really have much faith in them to do much, to be honest.
And a team that I think everyone has really lost a lot of faith in is, unfortunately, the Washington Justice. To quickly touch on one of the games this past week, the San Francisco Shock went up against the Washington Justice on Friday. This was easily the best game of the week, hands down. Justice lost this game by one fight. They were up 99-99 on Ilios Well, and it took one fight in overtime for the Shock to take the point. Justice had the point. They lost it and lost the game. This was something that I don't think anyone was really expecting from the Justice. But really, I think with this meta, Justice was on the top of their game. They looked even stronger on Saturday when they swept the Eternal. It just kind of proves that the Justice were performing really well and they were really good as a unit in this composition. But in the past few days, it appears that the Washington Justice is imploding internally and has really kind of shaken up how this team looks now. In the past, literally the past 24 hours, both Vigilante and Happy were signed off the teams. Happy went to the LA Gladiators. Vigilante went to the Atlanta Reign. And then a couple days ago, 2 days ago, we saw Tidala get let go off the team as their assistant coach. And 3 days ago, we saw Mag get traded to the Boston Uprising. That just leaves 5 players on the Washington Justice, and they just do not look good.
I mean, I will say it is a solid core of players, but it is just not enough, I don't think. I think they needed the diversity that players like Vigilante, Mag, and Happy added to the team. And they look really good, and they can swap out and play certain comps. But now they won't have that anymore. They're going to have to play...
If they want to swap anyone out, they're going to have to bring in management, literally, because they legally don't have enough for the league. And then there's also the stuff going on with Pre that makes it really kind of up in the air as to what's going on with the Washington Justice. He seems like he's either gone off the team as their general manager, or other powers that be are forcing his hand in making big decisions. I mean, he deleted his Twitter account and everything after like all this kind of started. So really, everyone's kind of looked at him and is like, "What's going on?" And really, there are no answers. And Justice is just kind of looking really disappointing, which is really unfortunate because Justice were truly looking like they were going to be a powerhouse for this tournament.
I was hoping if anyone would have implode, it would have been Supreme, but you know, I can't always get what I want.
Yeah, so this past week has been huge in news, and I think it just kind of puts into perspective right now just what's happening to the league right now, and it just kind of is like what does the future look like for the Overwatch League in general? People are speculating that the Justice might just straight up drop from the league next year, because of the fact that their like higher ups are seeing that there really isn't much profitability in the league itself. So they're trying to just stay as budget as possible right now, and who knows what the future holds for the Justice. Whether they stay in here or sell off to another company or what happens. And hopefully stuff like this kind of stops. I mean, we passed the deadline for trades and everything, so that is something that can't happen anymore. So it's just a matter of hoping that nothing big happens like this again until never. But to quit being somber, let's move into week 2. I guess let's quickly go over the games that are happening tonight. The East region. We are starting off the Guangzhou Charge taking on the Shanghai Dragons.
We'd be starting off with
something that doesn't even need to be mentioned. I don't think.
What do you mean that needs to be mentioned?
This game.
It does. I think with this new roster that they're splitting, I think Charge could pick up some maps.
Oh, what all did Charge do? I actually don't know.
So the Charge did release a few players. Like they released Rio, they released Develop, and I believe, yeah, they released quite a few players like Rio, Develop, Unique, and Mali, I believe.
And then they pick up Xerneas.
Yeah, Xerneas.
The counterpart to Yveltal.
Well, actually, it is Yveltal.
Oh, it is Yveltal. Sorry, I'm looking at Liquipedia right now, and I just opened it up, and it's just the page for Xerneas just has a picture of Yveltal's Chengdu thing, with the Yveltal literally right at the bottom of it.
Pokemon names aside, you got Xerneas, Jimmy, and Abrita, which this is pretty much just Chengdu Hunter's roster, but with the Charge jersey. I think, and I think this is a meta where we've seen lower tier teams punch up to the higher tier teams, and I think this is a meta that Charge can certainly do it. I think they've gotten over their old roster, and I think their new one seems much more better. And it's going to have a lot more synergy, especially since Farway and Xerneas have previously played together. So they're going to have really good support synergy. We're going to have Krong on the Joker Queen, which I feel like that's going to be pretty neat. And a very decent DPS line. And also, I don't really think the Dragons are... It's going to be the best, because it's going to be Genji meta, and Genji hasn't really been their strong suit. It's either going to have to play Who Are You, or they're going to have to play Fleta, and Fleta hasn't showcased their best Genji. But then again, I do think the Dragons have this. I think it's going to be like a very close map 5.
I mean, I do want to bring up one thing, is... I was talking to you about this earlier.
Let me bring up one thing. I think Dragons are going to win this because it is a Sojourn meta, and I think when you have a player like Lip on your team, it's going to be very hard for any team to come at you. I think Lip is going to be the deciding factor in this match. Same with like a lot of other teams on here, like specifically the Spark with Shy. The Sojourns kind of just like carry the game sometimes. I know Joker Queen is a very important character for any team, but I think for teams like the Spark and the Dragons, I think their Sojourn can just carry them to a victory, and I think it will this match.
Yeah, I was mentioning this to you earlier today. I think that genuinely the main focus of this meta right now is the Junker Queen. And if you just aren't a good, if you don't have a strong Junker Queen player, you just aren't going to be good. And I think when it comes to either Krog versus either Fate or Void, whoever is the one playing Junker at a Junker Queen, I think that Shanghai has that down regardless of if it's Fate or Void, which I think will give them the upper hand. Plus, Lip, like you said, is just an absolute insane Sojourn. So I think that this match entirely belongs to the Shanghai Dragons. I don't think that it's going to be super close, but I also don't think it's going to be a sweep. Next up is the Spark versus the Dynasty. Another game that I think might be, I think is actually going to be fairly close. What about you?
I believe fairly close too.
Because I mean, like I put Spark in Dynasty as my two for this region, making it my crystal ball. So I mean, definitely looking forward to this match. Because I'm hoping that it's close because I hope that these two are going to be the top performers of this tournament. So personally, myself, I want to give this to the Spark. I mean, I really don't have much of a reasoning for that, especially since Seoul I feel like has the better members, like Prophet and Fitz. I think that those two could really carry this matchup. And then you also have Spark, who can play. It just depends on, again, who's going to be the Junker Queen player. Is it Gouchwei or is it going to be a Bernard?
I actually don't think. I actually think with the Spark, I think the difference maker, like I said with the Dragons match, is gonna be Shy on the Sojourn. Like, yeah, the Junker Queen can sometimes you know, carry and is the deciding factor of the match, but sometimes Sojourns can just completely take over the game. Like only the elite level Sojourn scans. Like you're not gonna get like any just random hit scan, throw him on Sojourn, and he's gonna like completely take over the game. I don't think only the elite hit scans like Shy, Lip, and like someone like Happy. I think those players have been able to make the character like game changing, and I think the Dynasty. I don't think like Prophet or Fitz or Stalker uh, can compete with that level of Sojourn.
Yeah, I do think I gotta agree with you. I think that this could go either way though. Because I don't want to sleep on the Dynasty. Because I feel like every time I do, they are absolutely dominant, and this could easily be the same way. It all just depends, but we're also not in playoffs, so it all depends on how Seoul feels today. Speaking of Seoul, though, they're going up against the Chengdu Hunters first thing on Saturday. I don't think that Chengdu really has much to go on here. I don't even think they're going to take a map off Seoul. I don't really have anything else to say about this.
I
Chengdu.
don't really have anything to say either. I mean, they're kind of just been a underwhelming team as per late, and they can certainly. I think there's a chance for them to take off a map.
Like there
So
is a chance,
that
but I want to go more
it's just
into the reality of it. Chengdu, they don't leave hasn't like I think we brought it up before. The MVP curse, like he's gotten MVP, he's washed now, which is really disappointing because I think that Leave at his level from last year would have carried Chengdu to being a top four team. Now they're kind of more of a lower tier team next to like Charged and Valiant, but they definitely have their showings. So it's definitely back to like that 2019 Chengdu Hunters where it really could just kind of depended on them on the day.
and plus the Chengdu Hunters are a team that don't like to play the meta and they like to do their own thing, which is not what you want to do in Jotes. Because in any of the previous metas, you probably would have been okay with going something like a little bit off character. Like maybe you would play like a different character every now and then. Like, that was kind of the Chengdu Hunter style. But if you play like any different character, it's gonna be very hard for you to compete with the standard meta because this is basically just goats but with Junker Queen and five instead of six. As
Yeah,
close as you can get to goats as possible,
I
and
mean,
I think
also,
Jungle.
I sorry to interrupt you, but I also want to say, there have been occurrences so far where that's happened. I mean, look at the London match from last week when they were against Boston Uprising. They pulled out. Oh no, it wasn't them. It was against Florida. They lost. Don't worry, they lost playing off meta, but they pulled out the Reinhardt, and honestly, Chatty on the Rhine, it kind of worked. It didn't work the best because they still lost the map, but there definitely is possibility to take it to Junker Queen with other heroes. So if you want to finish what you're saying now, or we can go on to Shanghai and Hangzhou.
I'm good.
I want you to lead off with us on what you think about this matchup because I don't know how to really think of this.
I think it's just gonna be like a battle of the Sojourns, really. I think you have two of the best Sojourns in the league right now, just facing off together, and I think those two could really like determine the outcome of the match. Like one of them just gets a first pick, and then the entire team just bomb rushes the remaining four members. And at this point, I think the Spark. I think Shy might be a better Sojourn. Really, it's really hard to say because they're both so good. But I think Spark has a better versatility and team play that the Dragons do right now. I think the Dragons have kind of fallen off a bit. They just don't show the same dominance that they've had the past couple of years. And Spark and Dynasty have been able to rival them all, like often. I think they can actually take. I think Sparks could actually take this.
Yeah, I do honestly have to agree with you. I personally myself, I think that's going to be very close, and I think that in the end, it's going to, come down to that Junker Queen. So it's all just a matter of whose Junker Queen is the stronger one, because again, their DPS lineup, their support lineup, both phenomenal. With Alfie and Shy on the Spark side, Fleta and Lip, and Who Are You on the Dragon side. And then also like Izayaki, Lee Jae Gong, and what Bebe?
Bebe's on Dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have those three. I mean, Izayaki and Lee Jae Gong really not looking as good as they have been the past few years, but they're still definitely elite support players. Spark has phenomenal support lineup. I think that this is gonna be a great matchup. Personally myself, I'm excited to see it. I might just throw up the match one day and just watch it, just because I think that this is gonna be an absolute banger of a match. And another match that I think might be an absolute banger is the Fusion and the Valiant. Valiant have the biggest roster in the Overwatch League. They have an astronomical amount of players. And if that were what made these games, if that decided who won these games, Valiant would be number one in the league. But it just all comes down to the quality of their gameplay. So, what's your thoughts on? What are your thoughts on the Valiant going into this meta?
Well, right now I don't think their team play is that well. I think they're still just kind of a bunch of few pieces that are just been like Frankenstein together into the Los Angeles Valiant. And I don't think it's just enough to beat a team like the Philadelphia Fusion. Coming off a very successful run through the midseason madness, you know, practically winning it if it was just a regional, basically.
Well, did Fusion even face an Eastern team?
They
Let's actually go and look here at the
Mm,
midseason madness
uh,
tournament. Fusion. Oh yeah, Fusion round one lost to the Spark. They then beat the Fuel. then they beat the Mayhem, then they beat the Spark, and then lost to the Rain. So I guess technically they did, but they only faced the Rain. They only faced the Spark. My bad. Which the Spark really didn't look all that impressive over that time.
Well, anyways, we're talking about Fusion Valiant, not the Midseason Madness. And I think
You're the one who brought it up.
Fusion. I was just using it as a comparison. But anyways, yeah, I think the Fusion are just a more capable team. They have the teamwork and synergy that is required to beat a team like the Valiant that aren't as proven as the Fusion are.
Yeah, I do think that. Oh, sorry. It's like what, 1:15. Valiant, I do think, do have a strong team. Like, Dia, I think, is honestly a strong Sojourn player. Of course, the team isn't the strongest. They also have, Marvel and Sasson. Kind of a question on who's going to be the one playing Joker Queen. We've seen main tanks and off tanks playing it, so it's all just a matter of what the team kind of looks like. And I mean, Valiant do have a lot of pieces that they could use here, and I mean Fusion as well. I think Fusion definitely are not going to be the best. I feel that right now it comes down mostly to their. It really just kind of comes down to who's the better Sojourn, and in this scenario, I think Fusion hands down has it. Whether it's MN3 or Carpe, mostly MN3. Definitely a really good player. And I think that it will just come down to that for the most part. Meaning that while I think it might be a somewhat close game, Fusion have this 3-1. Although, back onto the topic of the Valiant, is their matchup against the Charge on Sunday. I kind of want to see what you think of this first, because honestly, I as much as the Charge have improved, I kind of want to give this board to the Valiant.
I thought you'd be more confident in your prediction about the Valiant. I thought you'd say, yeah, they'd probably just be a sweep for the Valiant. Because, considering the Charge of lately, but this is not the Charge of lately. I think this is a new team. It is a new Charge team, although this might as well be just like Chengdu, considering
Chengdu
a lot
2021?
of the former players come
Plus
from
Krong.
Chengdu.
Don't forget Krong.
And Choi Siwon. But yeah, I think it just looks like such a better team. Not like a game-breaking team, but like it certainly can beat the Valiant on not any day, but like in a close game. I think they might be able to take it to the Valiant, since it might be a trap game for the Valiant, because Valiant's probably preparing for the Fusion, since they're going to be the stronger opponent. That might be something that Charge takes advantage for. I don't know.
I think this is a real toss-up, because this honestly is toilet bowl of East region. It is the two lowest teams going head-to-head. But it's...
I will say, though, if I'm the Charge and I'm, a new team, basically, like you get a fresh start, I think this is the schedule I want. Like, Dragons who are kind of, like, down on their luck, and then the Valiant who are kind of not in a 100% very good spot right now, and something that you could probably easily predict. I think this is probably the schedule you want if you're the Charge.
I mean, really, like, again, like I said, I do really want to give this to the Valiant, and honestly, I probably will. Just for the fact that I think that Valiant overall has the stronger DPS line, which is what you're going to need in this. Charge definitely have amazing backline and Junker Queen and, well, I guess tank in general. But really, both teams I think are pretty even for the most part. But I think where Valiant might have the upper hand is in Dia. I think Dia is a great Sojourn player. Definitely underrated, mostly for the fact that he is on the Los Angeles Valiant.
Yeah, that is fair. I think if Los Angeles Valiant has a chance, it's going to be India. I just think he's not a strong enough Sojourn or anything, or Ashe, because I feel like they might be a team that plays Ashe, because I know some teams are. I think he's not a strong enough player like Shy or Lip to like take the game in his hands. I think he's definitely more like he's good. He just needs his team to do the rest. And I think the charge, like the rest of the charge, is probably better than the rest of the Valiant.
I mean, the question I have for you and what you think is who's going to be playing the Sojourn on Guangzhou or Ashe? Is it going to be Jimmy or Aprita? Because both of them have very similar hero pools, and it's the reason why they were both kind of. I think Jimmy was playing a lot more than Aprita, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, probably Jimmy.
Yeah, as I say, would it probably be Jimmy because of the fact that he's just such a better player than Aprita, and then it also just comes down to really who's going to be the better hit scan there. Is it going to be Dia or Jimmy? And honestly, I got to give it to Dia still.
I'd give it to Dia too, but like I said,
Yeah, it's all
Dia
just a matter of can
a-
Dia keep shutting down Jimmy when he needs to the most. And again, I think that is possible. I think that the way that Valiant win this game is whether or not they're able to that Dia can shut down Jimmy from making those big plays that the charge need to win. And if they do that, I think that the win is the Valiant's. But if not, I think the charge can take it. But regardless, I think it's going to be a very close game.
with that being said, I think we should probably start speeding this up, or else the games will start before we even finish.
Yeah, probably. So Fusion Hunters. I mean, like we said with Dynasty, the Hunters. There's not much to say. Chengdu not looking too great. Fusion looked pretty decent. That does it with our East region. On to the West region, we have starting up. We have the Vancouver Titans and the New York Excelsior. A game that most people would probably say would be Toilet Bowl, but here we are, probably honestly two juggernauts of this tournament.
I don't think anyone right now is saying that's going to be Toilet Bowl, because I think most people realize, oh yeah, these
Well, yeah,
teams
I
are
meant going into this
better.
tournament, seeing this on the week 2 roster or the week 2 schedule would be like, all right, yeah, this is just a Toilet Bowl game. It's gonna be really boring, but Vancouver and Nixel are genuinely looking to be top tier threats here, which feels so wrong to say.
I mean, I think this game's going to be close. I think there's a clear winner in between these two teams.
For me, there really isn't. So, who do you feel is the winner and why?
Well, okay, I think Nixel is easily the winner of this, because they've actually proven themselves that they can hang in, that they can even hang in with the top tier teams. Like, I think Dallas is looking to be like one of the best teams, like right next to the Shock, even better than the Gladiators this tournament. And they went Map 5 with Dallas Fuel on top
They didn't go
of
Map 5.
beating the
Did
Houston.
they?
Pretty sure they did.
No, they lost 3-1. You see,
Oh,
no,
well,
I had it
it was
predicted 3-2, and stupidly I had Nixel winning. I don't know why I did. I really don't.
well, Dallas wasn't looking too good before the tournament, but I don't know why you had
Well,
Nixel winning.
I saw
You-
this. I saw these two games, Nixel, Houston, and uh, Dallas Glads. And for some reason, I still went with uh, Nixel for some reason. Especially since they didn't play at all. Mainly, I think that what probably was is that Houston also beat the Gladiators. So I just kind of saw it being a very close game, and I just kind of gave it to Nixel because I wanted the kind of, I guess, like an
Then,
underdog story.
then again, seeing that Nixel actually beat the Houston Outlaws, which is not you know,
But
not a
let's
feat to
also
be taken
think here
lightly.
that that
Well,
that Houston was the first game with Lep and Doge.
it's
Plus,
still the Houston Outlaws. It's still the
plus, it's
Houston Outlaws.
clear that Lep wasn't a very good Junker Queen with the team. So it
Okay.
definitely is kind of a toss up for Nixel.
So they
Uh,
beat the weak Houston Outlaws. That's still better than anything Vancouver's ever done.
I mean, they went map 5 against Toronto, who did pretty good against Atlanta, and they 3-0'd Paris, which they the first time they done that.
I
Where
mean,
that's where
even
Paris's wins came from.
any team can 3-0 Paris, I'm pretty sure.
Vancouver couldn't. Did you not see last time they faced off?
Well, any team can 3-0 Paris, considering that Vancouver beat Paris
Yeah.
3-0. So that's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
Jeez.
I think this is gonna be pretty close, and I guess I gotta agree with you. I think that both teams are really good looking this year, or this tournament. I
I
really
don't
wish we got to see more Titans this week.
I don't think that anything Toronto is doing is enough to say, oh, Vancouver's like a good team because they went Mat 5. Because Boston did the exact same thing, and we're not saying anything like, oh, Boston's a good team. So if you hang with Boston, then you're a really good team. No, I don't see that happening because I think Atlanta Rain's just really down in the luck right now. So I think Toronto's fine is just still a mid-tier team, and it just so happens that they went Mat 5 with the winless Titans.
So on to another team that another match that has quite a bit of stakes to it. Boston and San Francisco. Shocker looking to get their 13th win in a row. That would put them one away from tying Vancouver's current standing 14-0 win streak from back in
Well,
2019.
actually, it's going to be on their 18th regular season win, and the 19th is a record.
No, because this Glads match is the tie.
Well, yeah, because this is the 18th,
Oh
and then they
yeah,
need 19th to buy it.
math is hard. Yeah. So, but regardless, Boston is the last stop that Shock has to make to get to that record, or at least to get one win. Like, I guess I don't know, because personally myself, just to skip ahead for a quick second, I think Glads are gonna lose this match, hands down. But it feels weird to say, but Boston stands a bit more of a chance, especially since they have Mag on their team now. Because that's something that we have to put into perspective here. Is Boston now has Mag, who was kind of a leading force in Justice's close game against the Shock. I think that Kaluge versus Mag was absolutely dominating against Kaluge, and we could be seeing that again this week.
Yeah, but it's still the Boston Uprising. I don't think a
It
single player
is
is going to do that much to the team, especially something that could beat the Shock, because they still did beat Mag. So,
barely one fight, one singular fight is what took Shock to beat the Justice. Was one fight. If Shock lost that fight,
that's
we
all that
wouldn't even be
matters.
talking about this being a potentially historic matchup. And here we are. Mag is in that same position again. You know, I personally say don't bet with the Boston Uprising because they are notorious for being very poor, very bad team. But you know, Danny Lynn once said, "I'm going with the Houston Outlaws." This is not the Houston Outlaws. This is Boston Uprising. So I'm saying I'm going with the Boston Uprising. I think that the Boston Uprising can take this victory against the Shock. It seems ludicrous, I know, but you gotta make some mogul moves here, and I'm taking one.
Jeez, and I thought I was the Mag supporter.
I think Boston looks really good, and the addition of Mag allows them to be able to be strictly Korean in their comms, which is what Boston has been struggling with, is that language barrier in their comms. And now they don't have that hurdle anymore. Could that be the? I think that's the X factor for Boston.
Knowing how Justice, or not Justice, knowing how Boston play, they're probably just gonna have Punkin for no reason.
If it is, well, I lost. It's going to be a 3-0. But with Mag, I think that this. Honestly, even with Punk, I think that they have a chance at taking a couple maps off the Shock. Not winning with Punk, but I think that if it comes down to it, I think that Shock would definitely lose at least a map to Boston if they had Punk in. Regardless, this is a match that I'm very excited to see.
I'll prepare for disappointment. And no other.
I always am with the Boston Uprising.
That's a good segue into Toronto Defiant. Toronto Defiant.
I don't really have much to say about this.
I think Toronto's going into like one of the scariest teams into this tournament, and they're just kind of in that middle of the pack area. They can't escape it, and the middle of the pack isn't enough to cut it against a team like Dallas Fuel in this tournament.
Yeah,
So
Dallas looks really strong. I mean, Toronto looks decent. They had a good showing. They beat the Reign, who sure are down on their luck, but it's still a momentum building matchup. They had a close game against the Titans, which, I mean, Titans looking like a whole new beast, literally. So it definitely is a match that I think could be decent, but Toronto, I don't think they really stand a chance in the end. Here's another matchup, though, that I think might be pretty exciting, is the Houston Outlaws and the Spitfire. I mean, the Spitfire looked okay last week. They lost a match pretty poorly, and then they won pretty handily against Uprising. They lost pretty hard against Spitfire. And Houston had the same kind of record. What were you going to say?
You said they lost to Spitfire, but how can they do that if they have the Spitfire?
When did I say that they lost to Spitfire? I said they had the same record as the Spitfire.
No, you said that they won against Boston and they lost against Spitfire.
I think I said Mayhem. I might have said the Spitfire talking about the Spitfire literally. But London lost 3-1 to the Mayhem. 1-3 against the Uprising.
They kind of feel like they lost to the Spitfire there. But anyways, poor jokes aside, I think I think Houston figured it out, and if they play the Dante on the tank instead of their new tank, it worked pretty well against Gladiators, and I think it'll probably work against London too.
Yeah. I do want to give London a map, though, because I think that London is still a really good team and can definitely take a close fight. But in the end, Houston has this pretty easily. Speaking of pretty easily, the Shock and the Glads. I don't even really want to give Glads a map here. A team that really has looked super disappointing this week. They lost to the Fuel map 5. They lost to Houston map 5. They were close games, but they pick up Happy off the Justice in their implosion. But with that, really, Glad still don't look really all that great. Look at other behind the scenes stuff. Reiner is in a bath of salt, crying his salty tears of how he is angry that this meta is quote unquote unskilled, even though he's just bad at it. I think that's going to have a negative impact on the Gladiators' performance in this tournament, which will lead them to have a very poor performance against the Shock.
Yeah, my thoughts are, I think the Gladiators are going to put up more of a fight than you say. Yes, Shock do need this win to tie Vancouver, so that's going to be a bit of a motivator for the Shock. But The Gladiators also have massive stakes in this as well. They lost two of their games already, and going into further weeks, they're not going to want to lose any more games, especially if they want to qualify it. Like, you've won the past two tournaments, and to not even make the third one would be an absolutely a disappointment.
I mean, to
Yeah,
be fair, the rest of
that even
their
doesn't
the
even
rest
cut
of their
it.
schedule is looking pretty easy. Next week they
Yeah,
face the
but
Eternal, and then the week
you
after that they
want
face the Eternal. This
you,
week they also face the Defiant.
you want to put people's faith back into this team, and I think going at least close with the shock might do it. And I think you know they're gonna have to pick up you know in their future games. I think this uh the trade with Happy is trying to do trying to do that. I think in the future, I think the Gladiators are gonna pick up where they left off and start being a good team again. But I don't think Happy has enough experience with a team, and I think the Shock are probably gonna win this because I think they have more at stake, even though the Gladiators are down 2-0 or down 0-2.
Yeah, and then also we also have to think when Shocker backed into a corner, or like when they're needing to win the most, they do one of two things. They either completely crumble apart. Look at the past three tournaments, two tournaments. They fell apart at the end, and or they completely dominate. Look at 2019 and 2020 Grand Finals. They just are either an absolute beast or they just fall apart. And it seems like this team this year seems to crumble a lot more when the timing is necessary. So this definitely could be a Gladiators win. But I don't bet against the Shock, as I bet against the Shock on Friday. So
Another thing you have to think is that right now in the season, this will be their fourth match that they're gonna play together, and Shocker up 2-1. Even though Glad's won the tournament, Shock still have bested them two times, and they have only bested them once. And that the one time they were about to get reverse swept had the Shock not C9, so take that what you will.
that just goes into my the fact that they crumble.
Well, they don't quibble enough apparently.
They crumble when it matters the most. But let's talk about something that's already crumbled: the Washington Justice. As they go against the Florida Mayhem. Florida, I think, looks really good. I mean, looking at their last week, they performed really well against Spitfire. Sure, they got swept by the Shock, but it's the Shock. You can't really call a team bad for that.
Yeah, I just want to get this over quick because I hate talking about the Justice.
Yeah,
I just gotta say,
Florida's going to 3-0. I don't really have anything else to say. Do you?
it's gonna be a loss, but I think it's still a core that can take a map off Mayhem. I think because the pieces are there, and they did look good previously. Maybe it'll transfer over. I don't know how good Kalios is since Mag was the one playing the Junker Queen, so it's stupid that they got rid of him. But
Probably cost the most money.
probably considering how much they had to get from to probably join the team.
But now let's go on to Sunday. To the Boston Uprising, the Dallas Fuel. I mean, I'm just gonna go back to reality. Boston's gonna lose this, but I don't know. I
You,
do think that I have a lot of faith in Mag to the point where I think that they're gonna take a very close series to the Fuel.
even if your hypothetical Boston Uprising beat the Shock, I think they'd still probably lose to Dallas Fuel. Considering I think they're two different teams, I think I just think Boston wouldn't beat the Fuel, even if they beat the Shock. But that's just me.
The next up is a game that I'm really another game that I'm excited for because we have a rebuilt Paris Eternal against a falling apart Atlanta Reign.
Well, I mean, if you're Atlanta Reign, there's no one better you'd want to go up against. Am I right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just get to punch down on
On a team that's
uh
already been kicked to the ground,
Wiggly.
stomped on, been dragged through the mud, hit by a bus. Just about any other thing you could think of. But again, this is a pretty much a brand new Paris Eternal. The only two players that remain is Dove and Wub, who I think were pretty
Yeah,
good.
already new.
Huh?
They're pretty much already new. I mean,
Yeah.
they've only had a few on the Paris Eternal.
So, I mean, really, do you want to put faith in this new Paris Eternal squad, or do you just want to go with the reliable choice of the Atlanta Reign, even though they are at this, like, downward trend, I guess?
Not yet. I don't want to put any faith into this team yet. They're incredibly unproven because they didn't even play the game. And if they're anything like the old Paris roster, then I don't think they're going to be enough. And plus, again, there's no one better I would want to be as the Reign when you're down on your luck than the hypothetical worst team in the league.
Yeah, I do gotta agree. But I'm gonna put a little bit of faith in this Paris squad. I think that it's gonna be a map 5. Do you have any other
Yeah.
objections to that?
I mean, I object to the fact it's going to be a 3-0, but they're still going to win either way, so there's no point in arguing.
To end the weekend, we have the Gladiators and the Defiant. Again, like I was saying, I think that Gladiators are really down on their luck, and this loss against the Shock might put them down even farther. But again, they need to win every other game past the Shock in order to make it to this tournament. Do you think that they have what it takes to beat this Defiant team?
Well, the thing with the Shock is that the Shock are so much more of a Titan that everything matters in this game. Not everything matters in Toronto Defiant. You can make mistakes against a team like Toronto Defiant, and you'll still probably win. Like I think the slightest, like even the slightest mistake in the Shock and Glads will lose them the game. But I think with such a mid-tier team like Toronto, they can play like a little bit sloppy, but they just have the players like to just make it work. And I think Happy on a Sojourn is probably a player that would probably like Shy and Lip. I think it'd probably take the game away from Toronto.
Yeah, I think right now Gladiators have their back against the wall. And personally, I do want to give faith in Toronto because I think Toronto is definitely looking decent. Not amazing, but they are looking fairly good. To where I think that they might take a close game against this Gladiator squad since they are a bit more of a weaker team as well. But with that, that is week 2 of the Summer Showdown. It has been almost an hour. East Region is about to begin in a couple hours, so I'll probably leave a comment talking about how wrong I was in the about the Charged Dragons and Spark and Dynasty because I typically am with East Region. I don't know why. I just seem to have a very poor lock on that region. So who knows? But this week looking to be just as exciting as the last week because there's a lot of history that could be made here. Shock could set a new. Oh, they could tie Vancouver's record. Titans could get 2 wins in a row. It would be their biggest win streak in a couple of years. So who knows what could happen?
The Gladiators could also doom their chance to even make it to the tournament.
Yup, Reiner could cry on Twitter a little more. Thank you so
And
much for
also,
watching.
you know what? Wait. I didn't make this spicy enough. I think I'm gonna have the Charge win against the Dragons.
Bold.
There you go.
Bold.
Listen, Mister
I
Boston
know.
Shock.
Boston beating the
At
Shock,
least
but
mine is
hey,
somehow based in reality. Yours is off on a whim.
I think when it just comes down to it, I think that Boston is more even than you think to the Shock, and I think that the X factor truly is going to be Mag being able to beat out Kaluge in the end.
you are the biggest Mag fan, and you don't even
I mean,
like him.
really, I'm completely blanking on Boston's Sojourn player, but I think that really when it comes down to proper and that I think that it's pretty even. Boston just looks really good, and I'm putting a lot of faith in them. I know that I shouldn't because they are the Boston Uprising, who got 3-0 by the London Spitfire, but they're also rebuilt with with Mag on the team, and I think that the language barrier is what's going to give is what has been holding the Boston Uprising down, that they no longer have. So the Boston Uprising could easily get this. Who knows?
I
But
mean, they no longer had that language barrier for a while, but then again, they play punk every time, so they have to keep it.
now they
But
have
we'll
one of the best Junker Queens going right now on a team that is full Korean. So, regardless, this is going to be a good week. I'm excited to see how it goes out. Hopefully, it is as long as my predictions look, and as long as it's actually. I hope it's like 10 times as long as this video. It's almost an hour long. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next week. See ya.